Welcome everyone to share going through the structure, meaning of Parshas Tetzaveh. Now, this really to some degree dovetails with what we spoke about last week in Truma. These two together, of course, are the sections of the Torah that deal with the original instruction to build a Mishkan, to build a home for God's presence in the world. And last week we pointed out that if you ask most people, they'll say, broadly speaking, Teruma is where the original instruction is given. Everyone should just voluntarily give things. And then the description of all the physical objects that need to go inside this Mishkan to build a home for God. And Tetzaveh is all about the Kohanim, the priests who are going to serve there. It's going to be Aaron and his sons. They're going to, the clothing they've got to wear, and then the whole ceremony that inaugurates them. However, that doesn't quite work. It's not a bad division. It's mostly true. But just to understand some of the problems with that are, well, the main problem is that one of the most important vessels inside the Mishkan, inside the home of God, of God's presence, is actually the mini altar that was designed for the incense altar. And that's only given to us right at the end of Tetzaveh. So last week we had the Aron, the Holy Ark. We had the menorah, the candelabra that's going to be inside the main structure. We had the shulchan, the table with the showbread. And missing from there is the third of the key elements outside of where the ark, outside the Holy of Holies, which is the Mizbeach HaKetoras, the altar for the incense. And then we had everything else, the structures, the walls, the things, even the altar, the Mizbeach that's outside. We had everything, but we did not have, we're missing this really, really important piece. And it's given to us literally only the end this week. It's like almost like, we nearly forgot this, but clearly that's not what's going on. So what is going on? Why is the Ketoras being left till the end? By the way, the other interesting thing that goes is that at the beginning of this week's Torah reading, the first thing that we speak about is Tetzaveh B'nai Yisrael command the children of Israel, they should take shemen zayisach, they should take pure olive oil, right? That it should be in order to be able to light the menorah. Why didn't we have this instruction when we mentioned building the menorah? If it's appropriate here and now, then why do we leave it? We discussed the menorah, we discussed the structure. Now we say, by the way, bring olive oil so you can actually light the menorah. And then amazingly enough, let's leave these questions to ponder for the moment. I'll get to amazingly enough in the moment. So on the one hand, it should be introducing the Kohen and the priest, but instead you have two extra elements. One at the beginning of the Sedra, the olive oil, and in fact, then the description of every day lighting the menorah. And the other is the incense, the Mizbeach HaKetoras, both of which bracket the Kahuna, the selection of the priests. The other problem, conceptually with the Sedra, as we'll see, is who are the Kohanim? Who are the priests? So it's clearly described as Aaron and his sons. And in fact, to this day, they are the Kohanim, right? When the Beis HaMikdash, Be'ez Hashem, will be rebuilt, they'll be the ones serving in that. But there's only a problem, right? Is that were they even selected at this point? You see, there's a machlokas, there's a debate whether the Torah is given in chronological order. Let's go with the Ramban, with Nachmanides, who says it is. According to the Ramban, we're in chronological order. So last week and this week are the instructions to construct this Mishkan, this home for God. Next week, we're going to read about the golden calf, the Egel Azav, as a result of which the people who are meant to be the Kohanim, meant to be the priests, meant to be doing the service in the Mishkan, are going to lose their role. That was the firstborns, right? From the plague of the firstborn in Egypt, all the Israelite firstborns were saved. They were meant to be the Kohanim. They were meant to be God's priests, right? Or at least do all the service in the Mishkan, in the home of God, of God's presence. And they lose that when the Jewish people, including them, serve the golden calf, and instead the tribe of Levi, which didn't do it, becomes selected, and the Rambam then describes that within Levi, the Kohanim are selected, right? But that means they haven't been selected yet. According to the Ramban, according to Nachmanides, the Kohanim have not been selected, right? At the moment, it's meant to be all the firstborns. So what's going on? Now you'll say, okay, so with Rashi, it's much easier because he said the Torah is not really in chronological order. And what happened is, first of all, came the golden calf, the Egel Azav. Then came the whole process of redemption. Then they got the tablets again, the Luchos, the Ten Commandments again on Yom Kippur. And only after that did they instruct building this Mishkan, the home of God. And by then, the Kohanim were chosen. Okay. But even according to Rashi, Right, so just to recap, so according to Ramban, according to Nachmanides, we're being told here that the Kohanim are meant to serve before they've been, at this stage is meant to be the firstborns. But even according to Rashi, who says, no, chronologically, this event happens after the golden calf. In other words, by the point that this was really instructed, the Kohanim that had already potentially been chosen. Even according to Rashi, there's still a problem. Because when was Aaron chosen? So you and I would say, according to Rashi, after the golden calf. But if you look at Rashi himself, several weeks ago when we read Shemos, right at the beginning of the book of Exodus, when Moshe Rabbeinu was standing, arguing with God and discussing, should he go, shouldn't he go, is he the right person, is he the wrong person? At the end of all of it, he says, Shlachna bi'ad tishlach, right? This is in chapter 4, Pasuk 13, Daled Yud Gimel. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Shlachna, send with the one who you normally send. Vayichaf Hashem b'Moshe. Hashem got upset with Moshe. Vayomer, as it were. Vayomer, he says, Aaron achicha Levi. I know you're referring to Aaron, your brother from the tribe of Levi, right? He's got that special role. Yodati ki yadabahu. I know that he will surely speak. You meant him, didn't you? You meant he's been the senior, one of the great prophets and leaders or whatever it is, spiritual giants of the people. You've been sitting in the palace. Okay, don't worry. He'll be there. And I know you're nervous, he'll be jealous of you. But he's coming to meet you. He will see you, and he will rejoice in his heart. He's not going to be jealous that his younger brother's getting promotion. He'll be joyful for you. Says Rashi, don't, not like you think that he'll be jealous or bothered. That you're rising to greatness. Because Aaron was not jealous, because his heart not only wasn't jealous, but actually rejoiced at the success of the other. Therefore, Aaron merited to get the breastplate that is on his heart. So that means that Aaron had already been selected at this point, right? Even according to, whether you go with the Ramban, whether you go with Rashi, Aaron is chosen before the golden calf, before the tribe of Levi's given a special role, and within them, the sons of Aaron as a Kohen. So there's something problematic about this selection of Aaron. And I heard an incredible answer. This is so exciting. Many years ago, I used to go when I was in the Old City to Shirim of Rabbi Weinberg. One of the Rabbi Weinberg, he used to give a shir in the Old City. And he said an amazing thing. And since then, it's been like really eye-opening. I haven't yet seen it anywhere else, but it makes so much sense. He says at this stage, Aaron was always going to have this role. But what did Rashi just say? I don't think he said this, but we can listen carefully. Rashi said he merits to wear the breastplate. He didn't say he's going to be the full-blown Kohen, because the word Kohen to us has two different roles in the Mishkan. As the roles described this week, which involve wearing all the ceremonial clothes, involves lighting the menorah, and involves the incense, the Mizbeach HaKetoras, which is why they're all together this week. But there might have been a different role, a different type of kahuna, a different type of priesthood, and that was offering the sacrifices. The sacrificial service was going to be done by the firstborns. So, in other words, what we have over here is two roles. This week's Seder is not about who's going to do the sacrificial service. That's going to come, this stage should have been the firstborns, at least according to Ramban, Nachmanides. And even according to Rashi, when Aaron was given that, the firstborns were still going to do the service. Later with the golden calf, they lose it, and now Aaron and his sons get everything. But at this stage, the role for Aaron and his sons is to light the menorah, wear the breastplate, and do the incense. Why? What's going on? And the answer all of these things have in common is this is about Hashras HaShechina, bringing the presence of God into the world. If you remember last week, I said the division between the two Sedras, between last week's and this week's, is that Truma is building the hardware. It's building the vessels. Tetzaveh this week is about how do you actually switch the electricity on? How do you get the presence of God to be flowing alive inside this place? And amazingly, an unbelievable clue about this is that there's a word introduced that dominates this week that wasn't really there much last week. And that is the word, last week we read about a mikdash, a place of holiness, and mishkan, a place of house for God's presence. Mikdash is, if you like, that which makes the people holy. So you come in there to become holy. And a mishkan is literally shaychein. It's the presence, the dwelling place, the home of God's presence. But this week, right from the word go, we discover a new word, oyhel moed, the tent of meeting. Here, this is where there's going to be an encounter between man and God. Not just a place that is holy where you become elevated by going in, not just a place where God's presence itself resides, but actually the place where man and God meet. It becomes a relationship. It becomes an encounter. This is what it is. It's the home of the relationship. Moed. Moed literally means a meeting point. That's what it is. And if we take a look carefully, we'll see some really, really beautiful things, right, as we go through. So, especially because we always read Tetzaveh in the run-up towards Purim, right? And amazingly enough, one of the first things we read about in the Purim story, in the way the Gemara depicts it, is that Ahasuerus, who was the king of the Purim story, the king of Persia, holds a party in the beginning. And part of the reason he holds the party is he's trying to express the confidence he has in the security of his kingship. By the way, Ahasuerus, you will see in the first 6 chapters of Megillas Esther, every time we read about a state of mind of Ahasuerus, it is prefixed ka, like. It's like he's sitting comfortably on his throne. He's not comfortable on his throne. And the Gemara explains why. Right? And the Medrash points this out, this ka prefix. If you need to read it on a simple level, you'll say like Rashi, it means when he was sitting on his throne. But this is quite an unusual thing, unusual literary device. And the Medrash points it out, the Medrash on Megillas Esther. It's like his heart was good with wine. He wasn't happy, but he's pretending. He's an incredibly insecure person, always pretending. It's like he's calmed down. He's not calmed down, etc., 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 until later on, when he eventually becomes authentic. That's a whole different discussion. But in that opening party where he has deep insecurity, and amongst his insecurities is he knows there's a place that's been the home of God in the world, in part of his empire, in Yerushalayim, right, not too far away. And he's got this deep insecurity, right, that maybe this is going to be rebuilt again. And will it undermine the role of him? Will it undermine what he's trying to build? Shushan HaBira, the great capital city, the only 2 places in Nach called Bira. Shushan, he's trying to build, and the place of the Beis HaMikdash, Yerushalayim. Those are the 2. So you see, he's trying to build a rival, and he shows that that's exactly what he does, that he has the Kalim, Shoilim, he takes out all the temple vessels. He's confident because he believes the old 70-year prophecy has failed. And what does he show this? He has this massive party, 6 months long, and then a 7-day drinking fest for everyone in Shushan, trying to get them to like him, to show Oisha Kavoid Malchusa, Yikar Tiferes Gedulasa, the wealth of the kavod, the honor of his kingship, and the preciousness of Tiferes, of the grandeur or glory or whatever is that, however you translate it, or beauty of his greatness. Kavod Ulusifares. And what does it say at the beginning of this week's Sedra? That one of the purpose of the big day kahuna wearing the Kohen's clothing, the breastplate and everything, is lechavod ulesifaras, the same 2 words. In other words, Ahasuerus was an imposter pretending to be, trying to play the role of the high priest of the Kohen Gadol, right? And this gives us a deep insight into what the role of the Kohen Gadol was. What was Ahasuerus doing? And that's why the Gemara says he was wearing the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, right? And he was trying to do lasos kirson ish v'ish, to try to please everybody. Oh, that sounds a bit like Aaron. Aaron was what? Ohev shalom, rodev shalom, pursuing peace, loving peace. Yeah, but there's a key difference. Ahasuerus is ketov lev hamelech b'yayin. It's like he's feeling good. Aharon got the kahuna because v'ra v'samach b'libai, he has real joy in his heart. There's nothing fake with Aaron. It's absolutely real. And everything about Ahasuerus is total fake. You see, the samach b'libai, the joy in his heart, the rejoicing that is Aaron, right? We say that the Shechina, God's presence itself, cannot dwell inside anywhere, right? So you cannot have it unless it's b'simcha. It's got to be in a place of tremendous. It's got to be in genuine joy, right? That right? That's the Gemara Psachim in Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph says it, right? And there's this idea that in other words, the simcha that defines Aaron is the thing that creates Hashras Hashchina. Shows you that what's Aaron doing? He's creating, his joy is creating the presence of God. But what was his joy? His joy was that whereas somebody else would have been jealous, right? Whereas Whereas anyone else would have been jealous, he has joy. Let's understand this deeply, because this is going to express to us so much of what's going on in all of this. You see, we saw the Mishkan, the building the home of God is something that requires the entire people. They shall make for me this place so I can dwell in them. And we saw that there's some of the Rishonim who say, Rabbi Ephraim ala Torah says, and Rabbi Chaim Volozhin brings it, that and the real home of God is the people, but not each individual. It's the collective. Each individual can't really be the full home of God. You can't have the full dwelling of the Shekhinah of God's presence in one individual, right? The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says as follows. Just give me one sec. Sorry. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Shlini over with a broken leg, but got it here, right? Just listen to this amazing thing. That the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says the following, that in the 3rd chapter, Rav Chalafta ben Doisa, Ishkach Hananya says, Asara shiyoshim v'eskim v'torah shechina shu imayim. Beinayim, sorry. If 10 people are sitting together studying Torah, the Shekhinah, God's presence is there. It says like in Nitzavat Hasel, right? That God, his presence comes into the congregation of God. How do you now feel if even 5? Agudah Saler Tisada, because an Agudah is called 5 people, right? It's, okay, fine. You see it's there too. How do you know even 3? But God himself will enter where there's 3 judges. 2, God himself listens in when 2 speak. And how do you know even 1? So why do we need 10? The Shekhinah with 1, of course, is with 10. The answer, obviously, there are different levels, right? When there's just 1, so Hashem comes to give a bracha. That's what it says. I'll come and give you a bracha. When it's 2, already it's like Hashem is listening. That's whatever listening means with Hashem, but it means there's a greater focus on those 2. When it comes to 3, he joins in their judgment. He actually inspires them to come up with the right insight and understanding, and so on. The higher you go, when you get all the way up to 10, then you have Elokim Nitzav. God's presence is now fully established with them, right? There's a total. So Shekhinah needs multiple people. Right? The less there are, the less of God's presence there is. Achashverosh wants to please everybody, but in the end, it's only so that they're like him. There's only one individual who counts, him. He's the most deeply insecure man in the whole story. He's petrified, says the Gemara of Esther, because she won't say who she is. He's jealous. He's scared of Haman. He's jealous of everybody. He's deeply insecure. The insecure person who needs everyone to like each other so their realm works, or needs everybody to like him, right, is exactly the opposite of the Shekhinah. There's no God's presence over there. Aaron's the opposite. You see, all the way through the book of Bereshis, all the book of Genesis is one story after another of the younger brother being chosen over the older brother. Hevel instead of Cain, right? Avram instead of his older brothers. Yitzhak instead of Yishmael. Yaakov instead of Esav. Yosef instead of his brothers, all the time. And in every case of those cases I listed, the older brother reacts. In the first case, kills his younger brother. They react wrongly, in most cases with jealousy, with hatred, often wanting to kill or sell into slavery. Only at the end of the book do we get Ephraim and Manasseh, where the younger brother gets the better bracha and the older one doesn't react. But Moshe and Aaron is the first case where the younger brother gets elevated. And Aaron had every reason to be annoyed. Aaron's been with the people for decades and decades, looking after them, caring for them in the biggest suffering. Moshe's been raised in the palace. He's got nothing to do with the people. And all of a sudden, Moshe gets put above. Moshe gets in trouble. He's left the country. Aaron's been stuck there in slavery or with the people in slavery. He has every right to say, Moshe, what's this? So you getting elevated above me? He has at least a right to feel grumbling, you would think. But Aaron doesn't feel any grumbling. V'ra, he sees it. V'samach b'liba, his heart feels joy. Why? Because Aaron understands. Aaron gets the idea that your success is not the opposite of mine. Aaron understands that if we're going to build a home of God, if we're going to build a nation, every one of us has a different role. Every single one of us has a different role. You, the heart, the liver, the spleen, the kidney, the muscles here, the bones here, every bit is critical. Each part of the body needs the other part to work, right? And this is the concept. Aaron's heart has a place for everyone. And that's what Rashi says, that because V'rava Samach B'libai, what's going to happen as a result of that is that his heart, that's exactly how Rashi puts it, right? His heart is going to be the one. It doesn't say at this point Kahuna in the sense that we're going to get later on of the offerings. But his heart is going to be able to hold the choshen, the breastplate. What did that breastplate do? That was where God spoke to the people through the lighting up of the different symbols on it. God speaks, but it's also a symbol of each of the tribes of the people. The tribes can only live together and build the home of God together if there's one man who embodies all of them, who's willing to always give up of himself to bring peace to everybody else. The opposite of Achashverosh. This is what real kahuna is. This is what real bringing the home of God is. This heart that can contain the love of everybody. Oyev, what's Hillel saying of us? Be like the Talmidim of Aaron. Oyev Shalom, loving peace. Roidev Shalom, pursuing peace. Oyev Esabrias, loving all the creations. Umakarvan Torah, and bringing them close to Torah, to God's will. That's the heart that can work. And this week's Sedra, so now what do we read when we start to read Tetzaveh? Now we have an unbelievable insight into what's going on in the Sedra. Now we say like this. Apologies. Now we say like this. Tetzaveh begins with exactly these words. Tetzaveh b'nei Yisrael. Tell them they should bring this olive oil, right? So that we can have a light. What is the Ner Tamid, the light in the Mishkan? It's the light of the Shekhinah, right? That's exactly what happens over here. The Gemara in Shabbos says, right, well, God needs a light in the menorah, right? We don't even need a light in the menorah, because you could have made windows, you could open the door, right? You only need use the Mishkan or the Beis HaMikdash in the daytime, right? So what's going on? So the Gemara in Shabbos in Chof Beis on Beis in 22b says, no, it's a testimony to all the world that the Shekhinah dwells here. What's going on? Because the Ner Maravi, the westernmost lamp, would light continuously. And you have this whole discussion. The Gemara in Yoma says that when Shimon HaTzadik, when you had a great kohen, a great person, then the light would always burn continuously, and they'd have to come in the morning and extinguish it before they relit. But then after Shimon HaTzadik dies, after that great kohen gadol dies, it depends on the individual kohen. In other words, whether the Shekhinah, whether God's presence dwells there in full, depends on the individual, right? In fact, there's an incredible, let's understand the implication of it. It's not an institution. The menorah doesn't light by itself. It depends on the Kohen, the individual who's meant to express the unifying heart of the entire nation. But that means that it's up to an individual. Just see, this is an incredible thing. We normally think Kohanim are just like, okay, you could have an artificial intelligence or a robot. So it's a Kohen. Why? Because they didn't serve the Egel Hazav or whatever it is, the golden calf. Fine. But essentially, they're just like any other vessel in the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash. Fair enough on one level. But actually on another level, the Shekhinah will dwell with the light, depending on who they are. In other words, the human themselves as them are part of what's going to bring Hashem's presence. It's Aharon as Aharon. Long before he's got the functional role of the offerings outside, Aharon as Aharon, what he stands for, a heart capable of loving everybody, capable of the unity of seeing the greatness in each other. That's what brings Shekhinah. Without that, you don't have God's presence. That's what allows the menorah to shine and reveal God's presence in the world. And why does it have to be his descendants? Because a Kohen embodies the special traits of Aaron. In a sense, they keep him alive in the world, but only to the extent to which they really do, right? If they fail in their mission, then God's presence doesn't come to the same degree inside the Mishkan or inside what is called Ohel Moed, the tent where you encounter God. So let's sum up what we said so far, and then I want to go a little further. So let's just look again. Command Bnei Yisrael, they should take the pure olive oil to bring up the permanent light, the light that symbolizes God's presence. How does God's presence come into the world? With us lighting it, but not anybody. But Ohel Moed has got to be in the tent where you're coming to meet God, where man and God meet. The Chutzah brothers outside the curtain, this is on the testimony, Yarech Oso Aharon Uvanov. It doesn't say at this particular point about Kohanim. Aharon and his sons, they may not have been chosen to be Kohanim at this phase, but it's not about Kahuna, the institution, although we will use that word in the Sedra soon. But at the moment, it's Aharon as Aharon. Aharon is the one who can see his brother getting greatness and just rejoice. That's the one who has to bring it. And anyone who can emerge from that and continue Aaron into the world, they are the ones who must light it from evening to morning, Lifnei Hashem, for Hashem. And that's only referring to the light when Hashem's presence is there. It's Aharon Uvanov. Right, nothing to do with Kahuna. Then we say, Hakrev Elecha, bring them close, from amongst the Bnei Yisrael, lachahanoli, as a verb, right? Not yet announced. They should do it. Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, they should serve. And we should now put special clothes, the clothing that shows they are there to unify the nation, to embody the love of the whole nation, and to bring Hashem's presence, to bring the nation in their own heart together to meet God. And that's, in fact, every Yom Kippur. The children of Aaron will walk in there representing the whole nation, carrying a heart large enough to contain the whole people, can come in a single body, bring the unity of the people to Hashem and in that meeting, bring Hashem's presence into the world. And then we go through all the details of it. We don't have so long to go talk through some of the details. I'm not going to do it right now. But only when that's all done, then we talk about the whole inauguration, how we're going to bring them there, the various offerings and so on. And the final thing we say is that Osisa Mizbeach Miktar Ketoros, there should be an altar of incense. And we describe exactly how it should be. And what should happen? And when Aaron goes and lights every day the menorah, when he goes to do the menorah lighting, then he should also bring the incense together in every generation, right? And what's the incense offering? And the Medrash Tanchuma tells us, it gives us an analogy, a very beautiful analogy. It says that there's, and this is how Rav Weinberg's insight puts together the entire Sedra so beautifully. It says that it talks about a king and he loved a woman and she was going to be his queen, and then they fell out and they thought one day and all the neighbors thought that's it, their marriage is over and what a shame. And then one day they smell the perfumes and they say, oh, they've come back together again. So too, after the golden calf, right? God and Israel look like they're going to be separate. And then we light the incense. And every day we light the incense, it's like the relationship has come back. Who can light the incense? Who can ignite the relationship of the nation and God? The person who can hold in his heart the whole of the Jewish people. A person who's love and non-jealousy, that's Aharon. And what it means, therefore, to be a Kohen nowadays is exactly that. It means to be a continuation of Aharon. It actually is the source through which Aaron still remains alive in the world. Aaron will not die if his descendants, if they can bring the unity to the people. And so let's sum up everything that we said over here. Last week, we spoke about the vessels that are going to house the presence of God, that are going to build a mishkan, that are going to build a home for God's presence. This week, it's how do we switch the electricity on? And the answer is there's got to be a menorah, a light that shows, we light the lighter, we light the divine spark, as if in each one of us we're lighting a divine spark. But if the nation is unified around that mission, that we are one, we love one another, we're not jealous of one another, we need each other's success, we need the differences within the nation so that we all beat together to a single heart that is embodied in Aharon, then Aaron himself can walk in there and light that menorah, light that and say, God, our heart is unified around lighting your presence. And if Aaron really has that joy with everybody, if that works, then that light will stay lit night to day, through dark times, through good times, every single day it will just stay completely lit. And then Aaron puts on these clothing that symbolizes the unity of the nation, all the different elements that go into it. The 12 tribes all on his breastplate through which God's voice can speak to the people. And finally, the Mizbeach HaKetorah is saying there's passion, there's love, there's the equivalent of more than what romance is in the male-female is the love of the unified nation with you, God. And so this now becomes an Ohel Moed. God's presence comes not just as a home where it happens to be there, and if you're deserving, you can walk in. It only comes in the context of the man-God relationship. God's presence is not an abstract entity in the world. It comes with a unified nation dedicated to God. And the unity of the nation comes through Aharon. And so that's what's going on in this week. And that's why the Sedras are structured the way they are. And that's why even if this was before the golden calf, or even if it's after the golden calf, but that was going to happen. Later, Aaron's going to take on all the jobs inside this Mishkan or Beis HaMikdash, is going to take on all the work as well. But that's the idea. And even if you disagree with the principle, one thing is absolutely clear. This week, we focus first on Aaron and his sons, and we focus first on these jobs, which are the jobs of Hashras Hashchina, how to bring God's presence into the world. And that means that nowadays, when we don't yet have this home of God, this tent of meeting alive again in the world, our job, if we want to rebuild it, is to learn to really see the good in one another, to really just want Ohev Shalom, to love peace, Roidev Shalom, pursue peace, Ohev Esabrias, to love everyone. And Makarav and Torah try to bring them closer to Hashem. And together through unity, and only through that type of unity, where we are dedicated to that relationship with God, do we have the chance to bring his home back again. And that's why the minute the sinas chinam, baseless hatred, his presence is gone. The temple's gone. We think, oh, it's a punishment. It's not a punishment. It's a reality. If the people aren't one, then the people cannot be in a relationship with God. And if they can't be in a relationship with God, then there is no tent of meeting. God's presence can't exist without the people in a relationship with him. The physical structure must just crumble. And the people cannot be in a relationship with God if they aren't unified, and unified around the collective dream of bringing the light of God into the world. And so this becomes such a beautiful insight into the whole nature of the way God's presence can go. And hopefully this will be an introduction that as you study further, you'll see, maybe you'll read some sources on like Rav Shofar Hirsch and others who can then talk you through the symbolism of each different item in there. But Be'ez Hashem, hopefully that's been enough for us to at least give a basic introduction. And everyone should have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos and hopefully be lit up by these beautiful messages of Tetzaveh. I hope I've been able to convey them in a way that does justice.